It is overtime here again at Barrel Amongst Brewing, where we are continuing a conversation about an incredible beer that you can see right here in front of me. And Ralph, I am a happy, happy camper. I love this beer with a passion undying. Old Rasputin, the Bourbon Barrel Age Old Rasputin. I saw this, I was going through like I often do, right? I'm going and looking for some beers that have been suggested for us. I pick a couple of them up, and I usually go on one little shopping trip to buy 2 or 3 different beers that we can do. And this just jumped off the shelf at me. I have been wanting to do this beer. Now, we did the regular Old Rasputin over a year and a half ago, one of the early beers, because how much I love Old Rasputin. And I've always wanted to do this, but I have not seen it on store shelves. I remember back when it would come in probably a 500 ml bottle. I don't know if they ever came in the 750s. And my God, is this the perfect Bourbon Barrel Age Imperial Stout. Ralph, you're a stout guy. I'm pouring this for you for the first time in a long time. What are your thoughts?
So first off, I just want to say I agree with Kevin where I love this beer to the point where when you brought this in, as I said, I remember like you said, a 500 ml bottle, and I'd be like, do I want to spend like $30 on this? So like the fact that we can just now review this, like whatever, is fantastic. But to talk about the beer itself, it really is to me a very perfect example, because I don't want to say quintessential because it's not just what it should be, but it's elevated, of a barrel aged stout. Because like I get oak, I get vanilla, I even get a bit of caramel, but it's all just this big bold stout with a barrel. It doesn't taste like, oh, we had to add these 7 other things to get this flavor. It's just, we executed this beer well, we aged it well, and this is what you get.
It's really magical. I mean, Old Rasputin as itself is just such a perfect example of what an Imperial Stout should be. It's got the right amount of bitterness to it. It's got tons of malt character. It's just really complex and really interesting. And then you take that beer and you put it in the bourbon barrel, and I'm getting a little bit less bitterness, a little more sweetness out of it. It's got all that caramel and vanilla you're talking about. I'm getting like cotton candy on the nose, which I think is a really interesting complex aroma and flavor. It is just, there's molasses here and brown sugar. It's just that freaking good. And I think it gets lost in the fact, because Old Rasputin has been around for so long, and for the longest time was available pretty much everywhere, especially in craft beer stores, and you could still find it. Obviously in our backyard you can still find it, maybe not obviously in yours, but this beer was a once-a-year release, and it was highly sought after. And now everybody and their mother has a Bourbon Barrel Age Imperial Stout. Everyone and their mother has a crazy pastry stout. And this beer just keeps on trucking along, being as complex and as interesting, if not more so, than all of them.
Yeah, and I was just going to even say this is, it's one of those things where everybody does have one, not everybody should, because the way this is, there's even, like, as I drink it more, like, I still get the roasted malt. Like, This is very much still a stout. But sometimes when you put a stout in a barrel, like, oh, it might get a little thin or you'll lose something. No, this is... And I would love to discuss with their head brewer or whoever's running the show now how they did it, because you literally get everything from Old Rasputin, just like better or elevated or whatever, word you want to describe it as, being something that's just made with purpose and made really well, because you get all those notes we mentioned, you don't lose the beer. And I could see this getting not only better with age, like if, were to cellar some of these bottles, but I would be not very concerned with anything going sideways. This to me was so well put together. I could have this same exact, vintage in like 5 years, and I imagine it would be excellent.
Oh, back in the day, I used to get verticals, or I used to get bottles and save them to make verticals later on. And yes, this beer ages extremely well. It becomes even more complex if that's possible. This was, by the time I had gotten into this beer, it had been around for a while. And I remember having this beer giving this beer for the first time to people that were drinking Dark Lord and some of the really, really popular Kate the Great, the really, really popular Imperial Stouts when it was really taking off, like kind of the first wave of whale Imperial Stouts, right? And I remember drinking this beer with people that had not had this before, and that watching them, their minds be blown that a beer from North Coast, which is an incredible brewery, by the way, but not on that kind of hype train place, and watching their eyes get big and talk about how incredible the beer was. And like, wait, you can get this at Total Wine? I'm like, yeah, you can go to a local craft beer place and get this beer, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting that you should make that comment, because now it's kind of almost in a way come full circle, where like if you were to give somebody Old Rasputin, they might be the same thing, like, oh, what is this? Or like someone might know of it who's been into craft beer for a while, but not immediately think to gravitate towards it. But I would choose this beer, same thing, even some of the bigger stout names now that are more of your pastry stouts. I would choose this over all of them.
Hands down.
Yeah.
So listen, North Coast, incredible brewery, makes tons of great beers. I'm still trying to track down Old Stock, one of my favorite old ales. We don't get it down here anymore. I'm not even sure if it's in production, but we're trying to track that down to bring it to you for Old Favorite Friday at some point. But Old Rasputin, the regular Old Rasputin, if you have it and it's available to you, drink that beer. And know that that's one of the best examples of Imperial Stout out there anywhere, bar none. If you are lucky enough to have this near you on one of your shelves, the Bourbon Barrel version, it's a joy. It really is. I can't be any more of a fanboy of this beer. I really highly recommend you go pick this up and tell us what you think about it. Tell us if you think we're crazy. Tell us if you agree with us, which you probably will. Ralph, anything else to say about the beer?
No, just pretty much to echo everything we said. This is a fantastic beer. Like you said, anyone should try it. And I will say this, or reiterate it, if you like pastry stouts, you really need to try this, because this is the reason we have those. So you really should at least know where everything comes from. So
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Please look at our other videos here on this channel where Ralph and I talk about other crazy beers. We do only do beers that we love. This was an Old Favorite Friday for a reason. So, we're talking about beers that we love, and you're always going to go... you're always going to be satisfied with the beers that we're talking about, because they are standards in the industry and absolutely incredible. And we'll see you next week on Old Favorite Friday. Cheers.
cheers.